We are recording this session. We did have some people who weren't able to get on because of weather and connectivity, so we are going to be recording. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as we get everybody on. You give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Are we good? Okay. All right, so welcome everyone to our OSD Elementary Ed Chat about universal design for learning. We have done a few of these Ed Chats over the last year. We usually do them quarterly, and the goal is that we support elementary educators who are generally teaching a number of subject areas in their classroom. So see, here's our agenda for today. So we're going to start off with some introductions and a check-in. We traditionally have kind of an active check-in when we do these. And then we are going to introduce our special guest for this for tonight. And she's going to give us an overview of universal design for learning. Then we'll have a discussion. So as you're listening to her presentation, be thinking about questions you have, how you can apply this in the classroom. And then we will share those in the chat and have a discussion. Then we are going to show you some of the universal design for learning resources that we have in our frameworks. And then any reflections, questions, that kind of thing at the end. So I think for time's sake, I'm just going to introduce our elementary team. And if you can just wave when I say your name so everybody knows who you are. So I am Sharon Morgan. I'm the program director for early childhood and elementary literacy. And we have Brenda Bamer Chapman on the call today. She is project manager for social studies and personal financial literacy. Dr. Kathleen Skinner could not be on with us this evening, but she is the project manager for world languages. And we have Shayna Klassen, our project manager for health and physical education. She'll be leading us through the check-in today. Dr. Elizabeth Mon is on. She's the project manager for fine arts. Anthony Purcell is with us. He's the project manager for mathematics. Heather Johnston, is she on? I'm not sure I saw her, but is a project manager for science and engineering. And we have Karen Leonard, our project manager for educational technology and instructional design, and Jeremy Maker, our project manager for computer science. And I am excited to welcome two new members of our team. And we've just hired some new early childhood specialists. So Rory Hodges is our first early childhood specialist, and Yvonne Rossiter is another one. So we are so excited to have you here today. So Shayna is going to start us off with our check-in today.
All right. Well, sometimes I call this physical activity breaks spelly feed, or you can call it spelling feed, depending on how your students would react to either of those names. So if you've been sitting around and haven't been up on your feet, I'd like you to stand up. And if you have some balance issues, then go ahead and put your hand on a chair or a desk or something beside you so that you don't fall, or just put your foot back down. So you are going to balance on one foot. And I want you to imagine that foot is a paintbrush or a pen or a pencil, whatever you prefer to write with. And I want you to write your name with that foot. I mean, you can write cursive or print, whatever your choice. Give a little autonomy there. Now, once you have done that, if you need to have your students do this at their seat, I guess they could do that, but you really want to get them out of their seat. And just a change of state is really, really helpful when you are during your lessons. So what I'd like you to do is balance on your other foot. And now I want you to either write one good thing about your day with that foot, or you can write how you're feeling. What feeling are you feeling right now? In cursive this time. All right, well, that is a nice little physical activity break. Hopefully that got you out of your seat and ready for our meeting tonight. So thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, thank you so much, getting us all warmed up. So our special guest today is Carolyn Thomas. We are so excited to have her here from our Office of Special Education. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and let's get started.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad to be here tonight and to partner with an amazing team of people at OSDE. I had no idea that I was going to wear the same blouse today as what's in this picture. So I guess that makes me the GOAT of all times, I guess. How about that? We are going to go through this presentation. We're going to slow it down, take it nice and slow, going to go at an iguana pace so that we can make sure we get all of the topics covered and everything included as we need. All right. So I want to thank you, Sharon, for being the one in charge of the slides, and you did that perfectly, perfectly. We're going to start with looking at what is the definition and the meaning of universal design for learning. All right, so if I could have the next slide. We have the goal of it, the goal of universal design for learning. It's commonly known as UDL, and it is to make certain that all students have access to the general education curriculum in various forms to engage full participation and, most importantly, to learn. So we all have a cell phone and we all are getting older. So therefore, we have those little shortcuts that we use. Even though we may not have a disability or a handicapping condition, we all love to say, "Hey Siri," or "Hey Google," or "Hey Alexa," and have them do the work for us. That is an example of universal design for learning. It incorporates everybody. We're all included when we whip out our phones and we have someone else do the work for us, or we utilize that accommodation. All right. So it's informing full participation for everyone. Okay. Sharon, could I have the next slide, please? All right. Here is the perfect example of differentiation and UDL. All right. So if we're going to say we're all taking a long road trip and we're coming through, I'm going to say Idaho because Idaho has a lot of moose. And there's a sign that says, "Beware of moose," but you can only read it if it's in English, Spanish, Arabic, or French. That's differentiation. But if we want to use that same thing about beware of moose, there's someone out there who needs this sign. This is universally designed so that everyone can read that it's saying beware of moose, or beware of iguanas, or beware of sheep, or beware of goats. All of that is inclusive in this one sign to let us know you have to be careful. There are iguanas out there, sheep out there, moose out there, goats out there. Okay, so give me the next slide. When we're looking at differentiation and UDL, differentiation is specific to the learners in the classroom. It's based on the knowledge of who those learners are and their individual needs, specific to them. Whereas on the flip side, UDL is planning for all students. It's incorporating everyone at the beginning, even though the future students are unknown. Those future students who may need the accommodations or modifications, they're unknown today. So we are including everyone. And then later, we're going to filter those out to see who needs the extra assistance and who does not. So let's get started in the next slide and look at some things about providing a multiple means of options for perception. All right. These are my favorite slides of all time. All right, so if you're old school like me, instead of having a pointer that was something cute, we learned to do tracking with our finger, and we followed through line for line by tracking with our fingers. Word pointers, bookmarks, they are going to help students or help readers with tracking. You can go to Dollar Tree or another one of my favorites, Five Below, and find all sorts of things, Dollar General, all sorts of things to help with a multiple means of representation and looking at this perception. Word pointers, tracking, a star, a letter wand with an E at the end is going to let you know it's going to change the meaning, all right? So look in the screen at the bottom right picture where we have the silent E, and it's going to make the word say its name. All right, the first word is hop. You can make the students hop and then put the silent E, and it changes the whole word and make it hope. Then they could write a sentence, verbalize a sentence, anything where they're going to know the difference between hop and hope, okay? If you have any questions about that, you can put them in the chat, or we can come back and discuss it later. All right, let me have the next slide. And looking at multiple means for multiple means of representation, options for perception, and using a reading mask. These are going to block out the extra text, and it helps the reader focus on the important text. I use reading guides all the time in sticky notes. That's my favorite color. In using a pen or a pencil, in using a reading guide. So what we have here in the top left picture is a reading guide. This can be from a simple ruler, it can be an index paper, it can be their finger, it can be anything, but it's going to just block out anything that's extra that helps them focus on one extra point, what is important. There's also the purple dude with the wiggly googly eyes. He has a line guide. His line guide is in the middle. And as the students slide that across the page, they will be able to see one word at a time, all right? Again, there are sticky notes, oftentimes various different sizes of sticky notes can be used to block out extra text. And if we're talking about something for math, you can take a sticky note, draw a T line on it. Let me draw a T. And the students can do math calculations on a sticky note. Sometimes students with disabilities, or not even just disabilities, students will have problems with tracking. And if they put one number in each block, then they can come back and on the back side, write their answer on the back, okay? Another great way is to take a piece of paper and do a hamburger fold, or take the same piece of paper and do a hot dog fold. And in doing hamburger or hot dog fold, that could tell the students which block of numbers. I'm sorry, I was about to stutter there, but I caught it. Which block of numbers or of math problems need to be done within that section, whether it's a hamburger fold or a hot dog fold. All right. Could I have the next slide, please? Oh my goodness. Do you have students in your classroom that like to rock and roll? All right. Looking at the colors, these can be done. You want to have someone who can sew. They could just cut out circles and put a little hem on them. These could be placemats that you purchased at one of my favorite stores. This could also be just colored pieces of paper that you laminate to put on each assigned place around the kidney-shaped table. Now let's talk about that alternative seating. Those things, if you look them up in the catalog, they cost a pretty penny, or you can make them. How about just getting a milk cart, turn it upside down, get a cushioned piece that you could put in there, and then you have alternate seating, and you have circles that's going to tell everybody, Carolyn sits in yellow, Shayna sits on pink, Sharon, you're going to sit on green, Karen will sit in orange. whoever else needs to be seated around the kidney-shaped table for instruction, and they have alternative seating. Another idea that you can do for that is take the same milk cart, turn it right side up, and put an exercise ball inside, and they can wiggle and wobble and do everything back and forth, but still staying stationary in the same spot. This lap table, it again can cost a little bit, but you can make that lap table by simply taking a, Lord, 3-ring binder, whether it's 6-inch, 4-inch, 2-inch, take your 3-ring binder, turn it to the side, and you can use clippy notes, binder clips, and using binder clips to attach your students' work to the notebook so that they could keep it in place. And then there's the awesome TV tray. If you grew up in the olden days, like I did when we were chiseling out IEPs on rocks, you have a wooden TV tray. And in that wooden TV tray, you can paint it a pretty color, and then that can become alternative seating also. Think about the student that needs a place to bounce and wiggle and wobble and all that stuff, and they can have this TV tray in front of them and be seated on some alternative seating and have the perfect setup in their classroom. The iPad wedge can be purchased with simply using pillows. Put in a reading station in a reading corner in your room. Have the students, they could take their iPads, plop down on a wedge, plop down on a bean bag, pop down on pillows, anything just to make it comfortable. And therefore, you have all of these means of perception done right within your classroom. All right, let's see what we can find on the next slide. Lighting is another thing that's very important. At the end of a long day, I love to just sit in a darkened room and just drink my favorite cup of coffee. When we do that, we do the same thing as what the kids do in our classroom. We just need a moment to just wind down. In winding down, we have these suggestions for alternative seating. Alternative lighting. You can have just a lamp in a corner in a reading section. Those at the very top with the pink, yellow, and white strips, those things can be made simply by using colored, oh goodness, my words just left me. I really got iguana-brained. It'll come back to me. I'll come back to it. But let's look below it. The lights, the Christmas lights, the ones that twinkle or solid colors or multiple colors. Those things hung in a classroom or just above a piece of fabric within your lighting. Those things help students. Anytime that you're looking about choices, if it's the bulbs or the lights or the light covers, use those things as many options, because we do know from studies that the alternative lighting helps keep the students who have ADD, the students who have traumatic brain injuries, all of those things. Softened lights will help those students. All right, let's give me one more slide. On the next slide, there we go. All right, using posters or teacher notes. In looking at the one on the left, these word choices, these things can be found in lots of places. You could also have your students to make them, and they could have their own math wall or word walls. They could put those things on sticky notes and have them listed on the sides of their desk. Also looking at the subtraction poem. I really like the subtraction poem. On the left side of your screen, we have more on top, no need to stop. Isn't that a great way to remember it? more on the floor, go next door and get 10 more. And then lastly, numbers the same, 0 is the game. All right. Subtraction poems help them to find and keep track of where they need to be. And those things can be written on sticky notes and just kept on the sides of their desk. Okay. And the next slide, please. Lots of manipulatives, lots and lots of manipulatives. One of my grandchildren, he's one of the oldest boys, he has autism. He doesn't know, he just knows that he has superpowers. So in his superpowers, he absolutely loves manipulatives. So in addition, we have introduced him to the number chart. And in the number chart, before he was on fingers, he learned to follow the lines and just match the number on the right with the number on the top, and therefore come up with the correct answer for the problem. Then we had to go to something else. We have done the bears. They love those little bears, and you can get those any little bitty thing that you can use as manipulatives to help them add, subtract, multiply, divide, sorting, teaching colors, teaching amounts and size, all of the little linking blocks, the connecting blocks, all of the sticks. But the greatest way to teach the concept of money is to have money.
I am thinking that there is a chance that we may have lost Carolyn.
Okay. Well, I know that this was a video, so I think we could just go to the video and give her a chance to come back on. I think that would work. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and go to the video, and she should be able to make the connection with this video when she gets back on. Feel free if anybody wants to check in on her. But this was about Marzano's 6-step process for vocabulary instruction. I mean, if you can't hear this. Can you see it?
Parenthood is a journey filled with countless decisions, especially when it comes to your child's education.
We can only see your slide deck still.
Just a minute. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, our vocabulary word for this week that we're going to focus on is formulate. Can you please repeat after me? Formulate.
Formulate.
One more time. Formulate.
Formulate.
What I always try to do is use Marzano's 6 steps. The idea is that we identify the word and we say the word. The students speak about the word. They give examples. They have a picture that associates with the word. They have a game, and then they are periodically challenged to use the word, read about the word, speak and listen to the word, define that word. What I want you to do right now is, whether you know this word or not, I want you to think in your head, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word formulate? Hold on, take a second. So formulate, what's the first thing that comes into mind when you hear the word formulate? Michael, what's the first thing that comes into mind when you think of formulate?
The first thing that comes into my mind when I say the word formulate is to create something.
To create something, very good. I emphasize tier 2 vocabulary words because these are the words that students are going to come across in their reading and their writing within all their different classes, not just their English language arts classes, their science, their history, their math classes, their elective courses. I always try to teach 1 to 2 words per week, and that's the limit for my tier 2 vocabulary. The reason why is I really want the students to get deep with that word, to spend some quality time with that word and understanding what that word means.
If a 6th grade student asked me to formulate a plan to be successful in 7th grade, I would say, be yourself and try to study real hard for all the tests every time.
How is this formulate? How does this formulate?
He was trying to create a plan to get the balloon.
Using American Sign Language, not only is there another way to associate the word, but for kinesthetic learners, a lot of students, I've seen a lot of students suddenly understand the word in the context of that gesture, that movement. Formulate. So it's this way to this way. Okay? Do it again. Formulate. Look at the definition. To create or devise a strategy. To create or devise a strategy. On Tuesday, I had a starter where I just used the word formulate in one of the questions. We're in the middle of a RCD unit on writing argument essays. So what I wanted them to do was to choose a certain amount of vocabulary words. I called it their vocabulary challenge. How many words are you going to do for the vocabulary challenge? Which words?
Predict, evaluate, and develop patterns.
Okay. On Friday, I always try to incorporate an activity an engaging kind of game. Another tenet to Marzano's vocabulary philosophy is to have a game, to use the word in a fun way. But also, I think it creates a little bit more engagement. When they have fun, students tend to sometimes forget that they're learning. All right, here we go. And the word is organize.
Organize.
Oh my God.
Right, did we get you back?
I am so sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I was probably using my hands too much. But I'm so glad that you did go forward and use the video. So that was perfect timing. Thank you so much. And looking back and reviewing over Marzano's 6-step process, did you notice in the video that first he gave the students the word, and in giving them the word, this would be a great concept to use for math vocabulary. Give them the word, tell them what it means, and let them make their own example or definition of the word. And then after they have made it in their own, the third step is they draw a picture of it and they get something to make them remember what the definition of the word is. And then in the fourth step of that process was they understand it by writing it down, putting it in their notebooks. I really, really love this process because it takes away from write your vocabulary words 10 times each. How much good did that do? But when we take it and apply it in each one of these steps or each one of these bases, they are getting a hands-on using all parts of their learning senses to understand what the meaning of the word formulate was. And then last, they were asked to discuss it with one another. And, you know, sometimes the best example or the best explanation can come from peer-to-peer instructions. We're having a hard time teaching my grandchildren, my son that has autism, teaching him how to tie shoes. So what did we do? We paired him up with a cousin. What does a cousin do? Sits down, does it a couple of times, and we walk away. Now we're tying shoes. So sometimes the best interaction can be something that's explained from peer-to-peer instruction. And then giving them the involvement and enabling them to use those words and reinforce their own definitions. So in Marzano's 6 steps of using it, just imagine how the language they've learned, even in using this with ASL, how they've learned they're going to keep this knowledge and they're going to take it with them for the next grade level. So I think that it was amazing in the way that he used this and the way that it can be incorporated so that it gets down in their little bitty brains and it will stick with them for a very long time. And I think that was my very last slide.
Hey, thank you so much. It was very helpful. Lots of great images and ideas to work with learners. So here's what I'd like us to do. I just want to set my timer for about a minute. And if you're listening, I'd like to do a waterfall activity. So in the chat, if you will type in either a comment, a response, or a question that you have after that, wait for just a minute. I want everyone to type. And then when I say go, we're all going to hit enter at the same time, and we're going to look at all the comments and the questions and address those before we go on to the next part. So everybody be thinking about your question or your comment. Start typing those. Another 20 seconds or so. What kind of response or question might you have to what you just learned? Okay, when you're ready, go ahead and hit return and let's look at some of the responses. Add a bunch of them. Very good, Karen. I like how simple things. Everybody go ahead and just look at the chat. Love learning ways for all learners. The E-wands has already worked. Use hand and body motions. Yes, I like to do that. Very good. Seeing the sign language in a general education class. I don't know, Janelle, if you teach that in your class, but yes, it's really helpful. Many adaptations we can make in school. Yes. Okay, Lindsay, I really like that comment. I do think sometimes as teachers, we naturally do some of these things with it becomes second nature. Here's a question. What would be some ideas on how to collaborate these ideas with other grade level teachers? Any thoughts on that one?
All of those could be used with all grade levels. This video in the Marzano model, those were 7th grade students. So if you started with just simply saying a word of the week, 2 or 3 words a week, the vocabulary words, have them start doing it in sign language. You never know, there may be someone in the deaf community or someone who has a relative who is in the deaf community. But again, the students in the video, those were 7th grade students. There was one more.
I was going to say another thing is, I know that when I was in the classroom, we tried to ensure we had common vocabulary. So if we were teaching math, we used the same terminology from kindergarten through 8th grade, same for science. And I think that ensuring the use of that common terminology can also enhance the understanding of the words and learning.
Mm-hmm. And there was a question about what's the youngest grade we can start using this process. You have any insight on that?
I used it with, sorry. I was going to say I've used it with my pre-K students, obviously not the exact same steps. You can't use all of them, but I mean, it was beautiful watching them use those same steps, repeating. We would use a lot of sign language, a visual phonics sign, something to that effect, but it worked great for pre-K.
Mhm.
And in multicultural classrooms, you could also just use it in a different language. It doesn't have to be in ASL, but include other languages.
It's a great point. And I love Heather's comment about if this is integrated, there aren't other students in this process using available technology. I do have a question as well that I didn't put in there, but I've been researching this a little because we've been putting some resources on our ELA framework related to UDL. And I was reading about how it's more proactive. You think about UDL maybe before you plan your lesson instead of maybe the traditional sense where you plan your lesson and at the end you have your differentiation. Carolyn, would you agree with that? I mean, can you expand on that idea?
I can agree with that. And just remember that, UDL, and it involves all students. Everybody gets the whole encompassing view. And then if they're not responsive to this, then you can phase those out as to who will move on to tier 3. The procedures themselves, the students will show you who needs additional accommodations or modifications or supports of any kind. I do agree with that.
I really like that aspect of it. I was thinking beforehand, and we're thinking all students, not just subgroups, after the fact. That was something that struck me. All right, if you continue to have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll stay on. We did have a few resources we wanted to share with you all before we left. So just a reminder that we do have curriculum frameworks. And here they are on the website. Maybe Karen, oh, there we go. She's got it in the chat. So if you go, we all have, for all of our content areas, state standards that we want to be the goals in your classroom. But to better understand those standards, we have our frameworks. So you'll find those here, and a few of them, they're kind of a constant work in progress, all of our frameworks that we work with teacher teams. So on a few of ours, we have added some UDL resources. So I wanted to show you the English language arts examples. So if you go to the link that Karen just put in and you click on English language arts, you can find UDL examples either by going to your grade level and then clicking on it, you'll see a list and you can click on UDL, or you can just go to it by topic and you can go to Universal Design for Learning. And then if you click on that, you'll see all the grade levels. So I'm going to try to go, let's see if I can get this to work here. All right, so here's UDL. And what I did here was I went to this by topic, which again, you can go the other way. So what we've done is we've created kind of this UDL, it's a matrix, and we have added in, it's UDL lens in an ELA lesson. So these are kind of generic strategies that you could use for any one of your English language arts lessons. And then so it's something to look at. So if you're teaching a literacy lesson, you can go through that. You can also go to the grade level. And if you go to the grade level, here is an example that you can look at. So at the very top, it describes a lesson that you might teach in a typical English language arts classroom, and then how UDL may be applied in that lesson. So it just gives you an example of how to do this. So those are some of the resources in the English language arts framework. I will say there's some in the fine arts. Hopefully Elizabeth's a little under the weather today, so I'm not sure. Can you come on and talk about your resources?
Yes. Sorry, everyone, for the scratchy throat. We have UDL examples throughout the fine arts framework in dance, theater, music, and visual arts. For the most part, it's in every grade span except for dance. We didn't quite get all the grade spans taken care of there, but you can see that for every grade level, there is a framework table in the frameworks there. This one is for elementary music for 4th grade, and it just gives you an idea of what the teacher could be thinking through before the lesson itself, like they were talking about earlier. So making sure that all students can access what the teacher is teaching in that fourth grade music classroom, and not doing it in the moment, or remembering after you have that fourth grade class that, oops, I should have done some pre-planning before I did the lesson that day. Apologies for the toddler. And one thing I've mentioned to my teachers that this group mentioned too, is that if you're an experienced educator who's taught for a long time, this kind of thinking is almost second nature. But if you're a newer teacher, I know when I was first teaching, you'd get in those situations where the fourth grade class came in and you were like, oh no, I'm completely caught flat-footed because I just didn't think through everything that this particular group of kiddos would need to be successful with the lesson. So that's really where the support comes in. And it, I think, really helps you think through all the different things that you might need to consider for all your kiddos to be successful.
That's very good. And I think one of the questions in the chat was, how can we share this with other teachers? These may be really good examples that you could look at and just think about, and then think about how could that be applied in different subject areas or with your class. You know, let's make a list of strategies as well. So we want to make sure that you all knew those were there. And then as we kind of finish up here in our last few minutes, we always just want to share some resources that we have to support elementary teachers who have lots of different things that they're dealing with. So we have an OSDE Connect platform, and I think if you just Google OSDE Connect, it has a number of professional development resources, just asynchronous courses. So you'll see something like this and you can search all different types of topics in there. And something that Karen's helped us spearhead is we have a new, if you go to OSDE Connect and you type in elementary education resources, you're going to find a course that looks like this. And in this course, you'll enroll in the course. If you click on your grade level, then everything you need for all subject areas for your grade level is right there. So you will find all the standards for your grade level for every content area right there, all of the frameworks links, the family guides, and everything you need for your grade level. So you don't have to look for your grade level in all the different content areas. It's organized for you. So that's something we'd love for you to access, and hopefully that will help streamline the process. Also, we have an OSDE Connect, or I'm sorry, just an OSDE newsletters. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletters, if you go to this link, you can put your email in and you will get a whole list of different topics from OSDE, all the content areas, and you can click on whatever you are interested in. So you are always keeping up to date on our newest resources, professional development, and announcements and those types of things. Okay, so we want to, excuse me, we want to thank everybody so much for coming here today. If you're listening to this recording, it was a very cold day and we had ice last night. So everyone who attended today probably did not have to go to school and still took their time to be with us today. So we're going to stay on for just a minute if you have any questions, but we do want to thank you for spending your time with us this evening, and we hope this was all helpful.
Also, I put the link for all the notes and resources. It's all of the notes over every elementary ed chat we've had, the slide decks, everything are right in there so that you can go back and look and see what you may have missed.
All right. I'm going to stop here too, as I'm going to put all of our contact information in here. We are more than happy to answer any questions that you have about any one of the subject areas. So have a great evening. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or just unmute and we'll be right here.